Rain fell over Seattle like a soft curtain, the kind that turned the whole city into a hazy painting. Inside a small art studio tucked between a coffee shop and an old bookstore, Ethan Morales worked with focused hands, tightening screws on a light fixture he had promised to fix. The studio smelled like acrylic paint, warm wood, and the faint sweetness of lemon cleaning spray. It was comforting in a way his home hadn't been for months. Lena Carter, the owner of the studio and a close friend of Ethan's, moved around with quiet energy. She was packing old brushes into a box, her hair held in a loose bun, paint stains covering the sleeves of her oversized sweater. She looked tired but peaceful. Ethan watched her for a moment longer than he meant to before turning his eyes back to the fixture. "Be careful," Lena teased gently. "If you break that one, I'll have to hang fairy lights and pretend it was part of the plan." Ethan laughed under his breath. "Honestly, that might look better than anything I install." The two of them had fallen into this rhythm for months, like teasing, unfinished laughter, and moments that stretched a little longer than they should. Ethan didn't know when it happened. But somewhere between replacing the studio's loose floorboards and helping Lena paint the walls, something inside him had shifted. There was a closeness he couldn't deny, a warmth he couldn't ignore, a heaviness he couldn't explain. He loved his wife Grace. He did. But lately their conversations felt like short messages instead of real talks. Home felt quiet in a way that hurt, even when both of them were there. Something had cracked between them, and neither knew how to mend it. Lena placed a small canvas on the table. "Can you hand me that graphite pencil?" Ethan stepped toward her, their hands crossing paths in the small space. As he passed the pencil, their fingers brushed. It was nothing soft, quick, accidental, but the air shifted immediately. Lena froze. Ethan felt something in his chest tighten. She pulled her hand back slowly. "Ethan, maybe we're spending too much time here, you think?" he asked, though he already knew the answer. She gave a small nod. "I don't want to be the reason you hurt someone, or the reason you get hurt." Ethan leaned against the table, rubbing the back of his neck. "I'm not trying to cross any lines, but I can't pretend nothing's changing. Not when everything feels so." He didn't finish the sentence, because he didn't know how to describe this strange mix of comfort and confusion. Lena swallowed. "Ethan, I care about you. You know that. But whatever this is, we need to be careful." Before he could answer, the studio door opened. The sound was soft, but it cut through the room like a sharp breath. Grace stood in the doorway. She looked nothing like the calm woman he woke up next to most mornings. Her hair was damp from the rain, curls sticking to her cheeks. Her brown eyes were wide and searching, trying to make sense of the scene in front of her. Ethan stepping too close to Lena, Lena pulling her hand away too quickly. The air thick with something unspoken. For a full moment, nobody moved. Then Ethan stepped back, his heartbeat suddenly loud. "Grace," she lifted a hand to stop him, not angrily, but carefully, as if she needed a second to gather her own thoughts before his voice could reach her. Lena broke the silence first, voice trembling. "Grace, this isn't nothing happened. We were just," Grace exhaled, slow and heavy. "I know nothing happened physically." Her voice wavered slightly, but she didn't raise it. "But something is going on. I'm not blind." Ethan felt his stomach twist. "I swear I didn't. I didn't say you cheated," Grace said. Her calmness was almost worse than anger. "But I had a feeling I would find something tonight." Ethan felt Lena shrink behind him, guilt written all over her face. "How did you even know I was here?" Ethan asked softly. "You weren't answering your phone," Grace replied, "and it was raining hard. I got worried. So I came to find you." Her voice cracked on the last word. Ethan's chest tightened. He had never wanted to hurt her. Not once. Grace took another slow step into the studio. Her eyes not angry, but sad, deep, quiet sadness. The kind built over too many nights of silence and distance. "I came here because I felt something slipping between us," she said. "And I didn't want to keep pretending everything was fine." Ethan felt like the ground had tilted under him. This wasn't the confrontation he expected. This wasn't yelling or accusations. This was pain coming to the surface, plain and raw. Lena looked at Ethan, then at Grace, then took a step back as if giving them space. "Grace, I'm really sorry," she whispered. "The last thing I want is to hurt your marriage." Before anyone could say more, another voice echoed from the hallway. "Grace, are you okay?" Ethan's head snapped toward the door. A man stepped inside the studio. He looked around 35, tall, with quiet eyes and rainwater dripping from his jacket. He took in the tense atmosphere instantly, confusion crossing his face. Ethan blinked, stunned. "Who is he?" The man glanced at Grace, waiting for her to speak. "This is Caleb," she said finally. "He came with me." Ethan's heart thumped against his ribs. "Came with you?" Grace looked down at her hands before answering. "I didn't want to come here alone. I didn't know what I would walk into." The room went completely silent. Ethan felt the meaning settle in slowly. It wasn't dramatic. It wasn't scandalous. It was simply human. His wife had been scared, sad, unsure, lonely in ways he hadn't noticed. Caleb gave a small, polite nod. "I just wanted to make sure she was okay." Lena looked between all three of them, her face soft with sympathy. Ethan stepped toward Grace. "Why didn't you tell me you were feeling this way?" Grace lifted her eyes, and there was vulnerability in them Ethan hadn't seen in months. "Because we haven't really talked in a long time. And when we do talk, it's short and practical. I didn't know how to tell you I was hurting without making things worse." Ethan opened his mouth, but no words came out. He wanted to say he hadn't meant to drift away. He wanted to say he still cared. He wanted to say he didn't know how they had ended up here standing in a paint-stained studio at night, with another man watching quietly from the side. But before he could speak, Lena's voice broke the tension. "Ethan," she said softly, "maybe you and Grace should talk somewhere else. This feels important." Grace nodded, wiping a tear from her cheek. "I don't want to fight. I want honesty." Caleb stepped closer, not intruding, but ready to guide her out if she needed support. Ethan didn't know what hurt more, seeing Grace with another man, or realizing that she hadn't brought him out of betrayal, but out of fear. Fear of facing her own heartbreak alone. Fear of losing her marriage without understanding why. Fear of walking into a moment like this without someone steady beside her. The studio felt suddenly too small, too crowded with emotions. Ethan looked at Lena one last time. She gave him a sad, encouraging nod. "Go," she whispered. "This is where you need to be." Grace stepped back toward the door, Caleb following at a respectful distance. Ethan walked after her, the rain outside sounding louder now, like the city was holding its breath with them. He didn't know what the night would bring. He didn't know what truth they were about to uncover. But he knew one thing for sure. Everything had changed the moment Grace walked into that studio, and whatever conversation waited outside, it would shape the future of all three hearts tangled in that rainy Seattle evening. The rain outside the studio had softened into a light drizzle, but the tension between Ethan and Grace felt heavy enough to bend the night itself. They walked down the sidewalk in silence, Caleb following a few steps behind, giving them space but still staying close enough in case Grace needed him. The streets were wet and quiet, lit by dim lamps that made every reflection look like a wavering memory. Ethan opened the car door for Grace, but she shook her head. "Let's walk," she said gently. "I don't want to sit. I want to breathe." Ethan nodded. They walked side by side, hands close but not touching. The warm wind carried the scent of coffee and rain-soaked pavement. It should have been peaceful, but the air between them felt uncertain, like one wrong word could break them completely. After a minute, Grace spoke first. "I didn't bring Caleb to threaten you or make you jealous. I brought him because I felt nervous. I didn't know what I'd find in that studio." Ethan swallowed hard. "I would never hurt you." Grace stopped walking and turned to him. "But you have been hurting me, Ethan. Not on purpose, but by drifting away." Her voice didn't shake. It was steady, honest, painfully honest. Ethan took a breath. I never meant to drift. I guess things have been hard. Work, stress, life. And somewhere along the way, I stopped telling you what I felt. You stopped telling me too. We became quiet. Grace looked down. A drop of rain slid from her hair to her cheek. I missed you, she whispered, but I didn't know how to reach you anymore. Ethan felt something tighten in his chest. Grace, I didn't go to Lena for comfort. It just happened. I helped with the studio, and we talked, and it felt easy, but I didn't choose her instead of you. Grace's eyes lifted to his. But you didn't choose me either. The words landed with a sting he couldn't deny. Caleb stayed back, pretending to look at the storefronts, but he was listening anyone would. He seemed ready to step in if Grace needed support, but she continued walking on her own. The quiet determination in her steps saying she needed to finish this conversation without any shields. Ethan followed. Did you tell Caleb everything? She said softly. He just knew I was upset and didn't want to face something difficult alone. He's kind. There was no guilt in her tone, no hidden meaning, just truth. Still, it made Ethan's chest ache. He had been the one she leaned on for years. And now she had leaned on someone else because she didn't know if he'd be there. Grace, do you have feelings for him? Ethan asked, his voice barely above a whisper. She stopped again, this time under the awning of a closed bakery. The soft glow from inside gave her face a warm shade, but her eyes held sadness. I don't know, she answered honestly. I don't think so. I barely know him. He's been kind while I volunteered with the shelter. He listens. And lately, I needed someone who listened. Ethan said nothing. That hurt more than if she had said yes. Grace stepped closer. Ethan, let me be clear. I didn't bring another man to threaten you. I didn't start something behind your back. But I have been lonely, deeply lonely. And you didn't see it. Ethan closed his eyes for a moment, trying to steady himself. I thought I was the only one drifting. I never imagined you were hurting too. Grace's voice softened. That's the problem, Ethan. We stopped imagining anything about each other. We started living like quiet roommates who hoped things would get better on their own. Ethan nodded slowly. You're right. They started walking again, this time down toward the waterfront. The city's reflection shimmered on the surface of the dark water. Boats rocked gently at the docks, and a cool breeze washed over them, making the air feel easier to breathe. Did something happen between you and Lena? Grace asked, suddenly, not accusing, just searching for truth. Ethan looked straight ahead. No, nothing happened. But I'll be honest, there was a moment tonight when we got too close. Not in a physical way, it was just a moment, a feeling. And it scared me. Grace absorbed this quietly. I appreciate your honesty. He turned to her. I don't want to lie to you. Ever. Even if the truth hurts. Grace gave a small nod, her shoulders relaxing just a little. Ethan took a slow breath. I care about Lena. She's a friend. But she's not you, Grace. She's not the person I built a life with. She's not the person I want to fix things with. Grace blinked, her eyes softening the tiniest bit. She told me to talk to you, Ethan continued. She said she didn't want to be the reason our marriage broke. Grace looked away toward the water. I don't blame her. She looked more scared than guilty. She didn't cross any lines, Ethan said. Neither did I, but the fact that it got close means something is wrong between us. We both need to admit that. Grace sighed, and for the first time that night, her expression held something besides sorrow-tired hope. So what do we do now? She asked quietly. We talk, he said. Really talk? Not just about chores or schedules or work, but about us. What we feel, what we fear, what we miss. Grace nodded slowly. What do you miss, Ethan? He didn't hesitate. You? Her breath caught. I miss how close we used to be, Ethan continued. I miss how we laughed at stupid things. I miss how you used to put your head on my shoulder when we watched movies. I miss how you told me everything. I even miss the way you argued with me when something annoyed you. Now you hold everything inside." Grace's voice came out small. "I didn't want to be a burden." "You've never been a burden," Ethan said firmly. "You're my wife. You're supposed to give me the messy parts too. I can take it." Grace looked down and a tear slipped down her cheek. Ethan stepped closer. "Grace, look at me." She lifted her eyes slowly. "You're not losing me," he said. "Not tonight. Not because of a moment I didn't understand. Not because of loneliness we didn't talk about. I want to fix this. But I need you to want it too." Grace looked over her shoulder toward Caleb, who stood several feet away, giving them privacy under a street lamp. Then she looked back at Ethan. "I came here tonight terrified," she whispered. "Terrified that you didn't love me anymore. Terrified that I had already lost you and didn't even notice. That's why I brought someone with me. I didn't want to crumble alone." Ethan reached out and gently touched her shoulder. Not romantic, just grounding. "You can crumble with me. You always can." Grace let out a shaky exhale and finally nodded. "I want to fix this too." Ethan felt relief wash over him. Grace glanced again at Caleb. "I should thank him. He helped me be brave enough to face this." Ethan nodded. "He seems like a good guy." "He is," Grace said softly. "But he's not you." Ethan felt something warm slowly fill the empty space that had been sitting between them for months. They walked back toward Caleb. Grace gave him a grateful smile and said, "Thank you for coming with me. I'll be okay now." Caleb nodded kindly. "Anytime. If you need anything, just call." Then he walked away into the rain, leaving the married couple standing together under the soft glow of Astreetlight. Grace turned to Ethan. "Can we go home?" Ethan nodded. "Yeah, let's go home and let's start talking again. Not tomorrow, tonight." They walked to the car, not holding hands yet, but walking side by side closer than before. Close enough for hope to grow in the quiet space between them. As Ethan opened the car door for her, Grace whispered, "Thank you for choosing to stay." He smiled gently. "Thank you for coming to find me." The rain started again, light and steady, like a soft reminder that storms don't always break things. Sometimes they reveal what needs to be rebuilt, and that night, Ethan and Grace finally started rebuilding, slowly, honestly, together.